This week the Down Your Way team has come to Wales. We're in Paris to visit the pleasant old... This week the Down Your Way team has come to Wales. We're in Paris to visit the pleasant old grey stone town of MACHYNLLETH, spelt M-A-C-H-Y-N-L-L-E-T-H. It has a population of about 2,000 and lies in the Dyfi Valley on the A487, halfway between Dalgethley to the north and Aberystwyth to the southwest. MACHYNLLETH has been an inhabited site since the Iron Age and later became a great sheep centre, and nowadays is a haunt for anglers fishing the River Dyfi. But it's famous throughout Wales because Owain Glyndŵr made it the capital of Wales at a parliament in 1404. And we've come now to the Glyndŵr Centre, halfway up the main street, to talk to Henry Evans, chairman of the management committee. Is this the old Parliament building, and how old is it?
Well, this building apparently was built about 1500. It is reputed to be in the Parliament building of Owain Glyndŵr, but it's very doubtful whether the building was in existence at the time. That was probably an open-air meeting.
What sort of man was he, and how did he achieve his fame before having the Parliament?
Well, he was a local landowner in the lower Dee Valley, below Corwin, and he had a dispute with Lord Grey of Ruthin, and that sparked off the national rising against the English barons and the control of the English over Wales at the time.
When he summoned the Parliament in 1404, who actually came to it?
He summoned 4 representatives from each cumwyd throughout Wales and representatives from France, Spain and Scotland.
Why them?
The French particularly were his allies against the English. Apparently the French and the English weren't getting on very well together at the time.
And did they give him some support, the French?
Oh yes, the French ships apparently were off the coast to support him in his campaign.
And then he was crowned, what was he crowned? Crowned king?
He was Crown Prince of Wales at the Assembly at MACHYNLLETH.
And then what happened to him afterwards?
Well, his popularity seemed to wane. The English forces seemed to have got the upper hand gradually, and he died somewhere around 1416. Nobody knows where he died, and nobody knows where he was buried.
He just disappeared?
Yes, apparently. Yes.
Well, we're in a large sort of hall with gable roof and oak walls. What does this actual building consist of now?
It was at one time during the last century used as a barn or granary, and some people thought it should be put to better use, and in 1906 Davy Davies, later Lord Davies of Llandingham, was the Member of Parliament for the county at the time. He bought the place and converted the old barn, which is reputed to be the old Parliament building, into a reading room and library, and he bought 2 cottages adjoining, which he converted into a local community centre. And at the present time, the old Parliament building is used partly as a library, and the management committee hope to convert it into a museum or something of that kind.
Well, you're busy, I know, with this, but you've got interest which most Welshmen have, and that's music. What sort of music is on here?
Well, we have the Choral Society. We learn works for the County Festival, now at MACHYNLLETH, and we have a music club as well, which has been quite flourishing for the last 11 years.
Anything else?
The Male Voice Choir.
Which is important, I bet.
Oh yes, indeed.
Right, well now we're going to check on your taste of music, because we're going to ask you for a piece of music to start our programme. What would you like?
Well, I'd like to have the traditional Welsh music, Penillion singing, that is singing to harp accompaniment, and I'd like to have the Cor Godler, a choir from Llanuwchlyn near Bala, to sing Awdl yr Amaethwr, which is an ode to the farmer.
Defaid cyfedron, bydd ar gronnu, a bydd mwndod
I said at the start that MACHYNLLETH was a great place for fishing, so we've come to see Mr. D.M. Jones. He's the secretary of the New Dyfi Fishery Association, and I think if you could help us to start with telling us a little bit about the river itself, the River Dyfi.
Well, the Dyfi starts at Aranvawddwy, which is practically about 2,000 feet above sea level. It has its source in a lake called Craiglin Dyfi, and it flows for 35 miles, entering the sea at Aberdyfi. It's tidal up to a farm which we call Dolgalanin, and that would be approximately 8 miles from Aberdyfi.
What happens to it when it comes through here, MACHYNLLETH? I mean, there's a bridge here.
It flows under a very old bridge, and it is said that the bridge was built before the river flowed under it, and that the river was then diverted to go under the bridge. That is the story going about, but whether it's authentic or not, I'm not quite sure.
Has it got lots of tributaries?
Yes, it has about 460 miles of tributaries.
Now, the fish in it, what sort of fish?
Well, it's first and foremost a sea trout river, though we have very good runs of salmon. There are also brown trout here, but they don't form a very big feature of the fisheries.
Sea trout and brown trout, what's the difference? They look different?
Well, yes, they do look quite different. It is said that they are the same species, but the habit of the sea trout is such that we could really be justified in saying that they're two different forms. Now, the brown trout lives in fresh water and spawns in fresh water. Now, the sea trout is born in fresh water. It migrates into the sea and comes back again to spawn in the fresh water. The sea trout now is very, very shiny and has a whitish flank. The contrast is so great you can't miss.
When does the sea trout actually come up the river?
Well, the Dyfi is reckoned a late river. That is, the fish start running in very, very few numbers in April, and they are the bigger sea trout. Then as the months go by, the shoals increase in numbers, and by July and August the river is very well stocked with sea trout.
How far up do they go to spawn?
Oh, they go up into the very small tributaries and streams. Probably they run in about 30 miles from the sea.
Do they leap like salmon?
They do, yes, indeed.
And we were mentioning salmon. What sort of league are you for salmon fishing?
Well, it is quite a good salmon river too. We have excellent runs of salmon. The average weight is around about 10 pounds.
Now, your association, when was it formed and why, and what's its object?
Well, the history of the Dyfi is a very interesting one. In the 12th century, most of the fishing rights were in the hands of the monks of Strata Macella. Now, over the next 7 centuries, they passed through many hands, and on more than one occasion they reverted to the crown. Eventually they came into the possession of the Lord of the Manor, Sir Watkin Williams Wynne, and in 1922 he sold the rights for £3,000 to a syndicate of 30 members. Now, this syndicate was very unpopular in the district, and poaching became rampant. As a result, the syndicate was wound up in 1925, and the fishing rights were sold to Lord Londonderry, who leased them to the town. A committee of management was formed with the option of outright purchase. The last instalment was paid in 1951.
So
that's how it came to the hands of the town and district.
It's now yours. And how long is the stretch of river which belongs to you then?
Well, we have 15 miles of fishing on both banks.
Now, who can fish on it?
Well, the residents here are very fortunate. They have very cheap permits, daily permits.
How do you qualify as a resident?
Well, you have to have lived here permanently and personally for 15 years.
And what about the visitor who comes?
We do issue visitors permits.
Now, if I know of a very good pool and I get there, is it first come, first serve?
It's first come, first serve. But if another angler comes along and informs you that he would like to fish that pool, then you must give it up in half an hour.
You have to go.
You have to go, yes.
And because it is all fly fishing?
Well, it's fly fishing mostly. But when we have a spate, and when the water is not suitable for fly, we do allow spinning and worming.
And one final question. If I come here, is it 7 days a week fishing?
No, there is no Sunday fishing.
Really?
That is a relic of the past, but we do take advantage of it now. We think that the fish really ought to have a day's rest, 1 day in 7 anyway.
They work for the other 6.
Yes, indeed.
Mr. Jones, thank you very much indeed, and I must recommend people to come here. It's a lovely district, and I'm sure the fishing is absolutely first class. Now, can we have a piece of music, please?
Well, may I have a song by Elizabeth Schwarzkopf?
Anything?
Anything, yes.
Sie war die Müllerin, zog es auch den Fischer hin, doch sie lockte ihn nur aus, denn sie wollte hoch hinaus. Nachts, da zum Fischen geht, klopft leise an und fleht. Wir auf, doch sie sind spätig dran. So nicht Böses kann nicht sein, so nicht Bösen schick dich drein, so nicht Bös und mach kein Sucht, tut dich Gott, vergiss mein Nacht. Kann nicht sein. Schick dich drein. Mach kein Gesicht, hüt dich Gott, vergiss mein Nacht.
We've now come to the Plus, a large mansion behind a boundary wall just on the edge of MACHYNLLETH, and I'm sitting in what I believe was the old dining room with Colonel Beaumont. Now, you've got very strong associations with this house. What are those associations?
Well, my grandmother, she was Miss Edwards, and she was the heiress of Sir John Edwards, and she married the Londonderry of the day.
And this house belonged to the Londonderrys.
Yes, the property consisted of about 12,000 acres of very good land in the Dovey Valley, and this big house, Place MACHYNLLETH, which was rebuilt, I suppose, from about 1770 onwards, from a small house into what it is today.
And then Lord Londonderry gave this to the town of MACHYNLLETH, did he?
Well, what happened was the 6th Lord Londonderry, I think it was the 6th or the 7th, sold the estate, but he kept the house, and eventually in 1946 he gave it to the town.
And what's it used for now then?
It was, a short time ago, the headquarters of the Urban District Council. It is now, to a certain extent, the headquarters of the Town Council, and the rooms are occupied by various bodies connected with Wales, such as the Dyfi Fishery Association, the Economic Forestry Group, and now the Post Office Engineers. One of the parts of the farm is now a very fine football ground. The rest of the grounds are playgrounds and general open space.
A wonderful present then, wasn't it?
It was a wonderful present, and it's very nice to see the place used in this way. When you think that it was, in the old days, the centre of the town, everything radiated from the place, and now it's come back to the centre of the town in a more modern and up-to-date way.
I suppose they're talking in the centre of the town. There is the famous clock tower right at the end of the street. Now, you have connections with that as well, or Lord Londonderry did.
Well, yes. My uncle, who eventually became the 6th Lord Londonderry, was Lord Castlereagh, and the clock tower was put up when he came of age just over 100 years ago, and it's known as the Castlereagh Tower.
It's rather strange. It's built on sort of 4 legs, isn't it? It's quite high, and it's slap in the middle of what appears to be the main road.
Yes, it's perfectly true. I think it's what the Minister of Transport, I'm sure, would call an obstruction.
Did you ever pull it down?
I can't imagine that the Minister of Transport or anybody else would dare touch that.
Colonel Bamber, thank you very much indeed. Now, we'd like a piece of music for our programme. What would you like?
Well, I would like my favourite Welsh folk song, Gwyneth Gwyn, which is in English is Watching the Wheat.
As you will have gathered by now, the clock is the centrepiece of MACHYNLLETH and held in great affection by the townspeople. And 4 years ago, on its 100th birthday, Mrs. Gwennon Jones wrote a monologue about it.
If our old town clock could talk, what would it say today? I imagine it would say, I have seen the passing of the years, as no man ever saw. I have watched from my privileged position the coming and the going of the natives of this, my town, for a full century. I have seen the bobbing and the curtsying of the children when the lords and ladies of Londonderry passed by in their horse-drawn carriages. I have seen the coming and the going of 2 world wars, and have seen the grief and anguish on the faces of those with the loved ones in the field of battle. And I have seen the glorious moments. I have seen, from my vantage point, the jubilation of the townspeople when its football team returned with the Welsh Amateur Cup in 1932. I saw the revelry and heard the singing which celebrated this great occasion. Royalty has passed by my grey stone walls, and princes and paupers have gazed upon my face. Bards and singers and elocutionists I have seen during the great Eisteddfod of 1937. The greetings which heralded the MACHYNLLETH male voice choir when they returned victoriously from the National Eisteddfod in 1938 still ring in my ears. I have seen the people of this town join together in harmony during the days of Howell and Blodwen, and in remembering music I remember the maestro, Ivan Maldwyn. And in more recent years I have seen the young men and women of the St. John's Ambulance Brigade bringing honour not only to my town but to my country. I have seen 100 years pass by. And now today I see the celebrations in honour of my birthday. I shall without doubt stand firmly for another century to come, and I can see on the distant horizon your children's children celebrating my bicentenary, not perhaps in the same fashion, but with the same sincerity and sentimentality as their forefathers have done in this centenary year of 1973.
Mrs. Jones, that was absolutely super, well written and well read. You mentioned the Welsh Amateur Cup. That's soccer. Is soccer played here, not rugby?
Soccer is the game in this area, but fortunately they had started a rugby club at MACHYNLLETH very recently.
You then mentioned Howell and Blodwen and the maestro, Evan Maldwyn. What was this?
Yes, well, many years ago the people of MACHYNLLETH all joined together in an operetta which was called Howell and Blodwen, and it is still spoken about to this day. Ivan Maldwyn, where I call him the maestro, he was in his own right an exceptionally good singer, and also he trained many a famous singer of today.
What did he do in the town? What was his job?
His job, actually, he worked for the railways at that time.
And a matter of interest in modern times, you still have a railway, don't you?
We still have a railway. We're on the Cameron coastline.
You said the St. John's Ambulance, they'd done great honour to your country and your county. What did they do?
Yes. Again, in recent years, they have been British champions and Welsh champions.
At the start, you mentioned the male voice choir. Well, we've heard that they're going strong. What actually do they do now?
They've done a great deal of work for charity, not only in this area, but over the border also.
Do they do any tours at all?
Yes, they have been to Bosch in Holland, and hope to go again next year, 78.
And what part do you play in it yourself?
Well, I am the chairman of the Lady Supporters.
Well, I suspect now, when I ask you for a piece of music, it may not be unconnected with the choir, is it right?
Oh, no, it won't be unconnected with the choir.
What do you want?
The Powys male choir singing, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross.
Just
We've come now to the Tower House. It's right behind the clock, looking up the street, and with us is Miss Elsie Lewis. How long have you lived here?
All my life.
Have you?
Yes.
Were you born here?
Yes, I was.
Well, now, isn't it terribly annoying? If you look out of your main window, it blocks the view of the street, the clock.
Oh, I like the old clock. I hope they never move it. I never hear it strike, although it strikes.
Well, you got so used to it,
get used to it, yes.
Today here is very quiet. Is it always as quiet as this here?
Not particularly. It is a bad day today. Actually, it's quite a thriving town. It's a tourist area, especially in the summer, of course. Probably because the sea is so near and the beauty of the scenery. We're 10 miles from Abu Dhabi and 14 from Towin and 18 from Aberystwyth.
Yeah.
And they seem to love coming here.
They got the mountains and the woods. They
and
walk
the mountains
a lot in
and the woods, and they have picnic areas in forestry, so they love going through the forestries. It's really a very beautiful part of Wales.
Again, we may have been unlucky. We struck a wet day. What's the weather like normally?
We do have a lot of rain, but on the whole, it's good weather. And snow doesn't stay here long, and we don't have very much snow.
Is it Welsh speaking here? Do you speak Welsh, for instance, yourself?
I speak it not very grammatically, I'm afraid, but I love the language. Hope it never dies.
And they speak it quite a bit here?
Quite a lot, yes, quite a lot of Welsh. Yeah.
What about the young people? What sort of jobs can they get here?
Well, they have the factories, the clothing factories, shops, and there's a telephone exchange here. Quite a few have work in that way. Farming is the main industry here.
Yeah. There are plenty of chapels, I know.
Oh yes, there's St. Peter's Church and Mangwyn Chapel, Presbyterian and Congregational and Independent, you know.
Well, thank you very much. We're enjoying our visit here very much. Now, we want a piece